Before the world ever argued over her beauty, before cameras followed her every step, Brooke Shields entered life already surrounded by expectations she never agreed to carry. Born in New York City in 1965, she was barely days old when the shaping of her future began. Her mother, Terry Shields, saw something in her, not just a daughter, but a ticket out of the chaos she had been living in. Behind closed doors, Terry struggled with alcoholism, volatility, and a restless hunger for a life larger than the one she had. Brooke, even as an infant, became the center of that hope. From the start, Brooke's world didn't look like other children's. Her days were carefully arranged, her potential calculated, her presence rehearsed long before she understood the meaning of performance. While other kids learned to crawl, her mother was already planning her debut. And as Brooke grew, so did the quiet pressure, the sense that her existence was not fully her own. But in those early years, before fame carved its mark across every part of her life, there was still a softness around her, a child unaware of the storm building around her, unaware that soon the entire world would feel entitled to her face, her body, and her story. Brooke's childhood was never quiet, never slow, never protected. By the time she was 11 months old, she was already modeling, posed, positioned, and packaged for an industry that didn't believe in childhood, only opportunity. Her mother stood behind the camera, directing every angle, every outfit, every expression. To the outside world, it looked like a charming partnership, but inside their small apartment, the line between parent and manager blurred until it vanished completely. Terry crafted Brooke's schedule with the intensity of someone fighting for survival. Agencies, auditions, fittings, all before Brooke could spell the word career. And the industry noticed her immediately. There was something striking about her face, the confidence of an adult sitting on the features of a child. Photographers wanted her, brands wanted her, everyone wanted her. With each passing year, the demands grew heavier. Brooke's childhood milestones, birthdays, school days, moments that should have belonged to her were overshadowed by contracts and camera flashes. She learned early to hold her breath, smile on cue, and ignore the adult conversations happening around her about money, image, and marketability. This was the beginning of the machine that would define her entire life. A child earning more than the adults around her, yet having almost no say in any of it.
As Brooke moved into adolescence, the roles written for her grew even more complicated and far more controversial. When she was just 12, she was cast in Pretty Baby, a film that placed her at the center of a world no child should ever have been asked to portray. Critics were divided, some praised her as a prodigy, others condemned the adults who put her there. But Brooke, still a child, simply followed directions, unaware that millions would debate her innocence.
The controversy didn't stop there. Soon after, provocative photo shoots pushed the boundary even further. The infamous images, meant to appear artistic, edgy, bold, instead ignited outrage. They were published widely, dissected relentlessly, and ultimately questioned in court. But behind every decision, her mother stood firm. Terry insisted it was all tasteful, all strategic, all part of building Brooke's legacy. Then came The Blue Lagoon, where Brooke, still a teenager, was placed on a deserted island with themes that blurred childhood and adulthood in ways that left lasting scars. Once again, the film was a hit. Once again, Brooke bore the cost. She was praised, criticized, sexualized, and misunderstood, all at an age when most kids worried only about homework. These roles made her famous, but they also marked the beginning of the lifelong battle to reclaim her own narrative. By the time Brooke reached her late teens, she was one of the most recognizable faces on the planet, a symbol of beauty, controversy, and control. So when she chose to attend Princeton University, many believed she was finally stepping into a chapter that belonged entirely to her. But even on campus, solitude remained a fantasy. Paparazzi staked out lecture halls. Strangers snapped photos without permission, and classmates whispered the moment she walked into a room. Brooke tried to blend in, to study, to be just another young woman searching for herself. Yet the world refused to forget who she was. College should have been a sanctuary, but instead, it exposed an entirely new kind of vulnerability. The more Brooke sought normalcy, the more the outside world intruded. Photographers climbed fences, magazines paid for unauthorized images, and tabloids created stories faster than she could disprove them. She learned to navigate the sidewalks like a battlefield, eyes down, pace steady, hoping no one would reach for a camera. Still, she worked hard, earned her degree, and tried to carve out an identity separate from the roles that had defined her childhood. But even in the quiet corners of Princeton's libraries, she could feel it. Fame was not something she could outrun. It followed her everywhere, shaping her choices, limiting her freedoms, and reminding her that privacy was a luxury she had never been allowed to own.
As Brooke stepped into adulthood, the world expected her love life to be as polished and effortless as her image. But behind the headlines, her relationships were fragile, complicated, and often overshadowed by the pressure she carried. Her first high-profile marriage, to tennis star Andre Agassi, looked idyllic from afar. Two icons at the height of their fame. Yet fame itself became their greatest obstacle. Agassi struggled with jealousy, and Brooke absorbed each emotional blow with quiet endurance. When he admitted he had destroyed trophies in fits of anger, it became clear their lives were moving in opposite directions. Their marriage unraveled in private long before the public knew. After the divorce, Brooke found herself confronting a deeper truth. She had spent years pleasing others, shaping herself around what people needed her to be. But healing would come slowly, and not without new challenges. When she married Chris Henchy, she finally found a steadier foundation. A partner who understood her history without trying to control it. Together, they hoped to build the family Brooke had long dreamed of. But motherhood did not arrive easily. After struggling with infertility, IVF, and heartbreak, Brooke's long-awaited journey into motherhood took a painful turn. Postpartum depression hit her with a force she never anticipated. A darkness she described as terrifying, suffocating, impossible to explain. And when she spoke publicly about her experience, she sparked a cultural conversation few had dared to address. Even as Brooke built a family and forged a more grounded life, the shadows of her past never fully loosened their grip. Years after she thought she had left the darkest moments behind, she revealed the trauma she had carried alone. An assault by a powerful industry figure she had trusted during a vulnerable period in her career. She had gone to him for help, desperate to revive her professional momentum. Instead, she was cornered, overpowered, and left questioning her own reality. For decades, she kept silent, unsure who would believe her, unsure if speaking would cost her everything she'd fought to rebuild. Then came another blow, a devastating leg injury that nearly shattered not just her bones, but her independence. A simple accident spiraled into multiple surgeries, infections, and months spent relearning how to walk. The same body that had been shaped, judged, marketed, and exploited now betrayed her in a new way. But Brooke fought through it with the same quiet determination she'd cultivated since childhood. And while she healed physically, emotional wounds resurfaced. Her mother, Terry, the woman who had controlled her, protected her, and complicated every part of her life, declined into dementia and eventually passed away. Brooke felt a grief that was tangled and heavy. Losing her mother meant losing the person who had built her world and the person who had fractured it.
Today, Brooke Shields stands not as the child the world consumed, nor the teenager endlessly scrutinized, nor the woman forced to survive silence. She stands as someone who has fought, over and over, to reclaim her identity from the industries, the headlines, and the histories that tried to define her. With her daughters growing into young women of their own, Brooke has become fiercely protective of a childhood she never had. She teaches them boundaries she was denied, confidence she had to manufacture, and the right to say no, a right she didn't learn until far too late. Her life now is quieter, steadier, grounded in work she chooses for herself. She speaks openly about postpartum depression, assault, addiction within families, and the cost of childhood fame. not to relive the pain, but to prevent others from carrying it alone. And in interviews, on stage, and in her writing, she continues to unravel the myths that once defined her. She is no longer the object everyone projected onto. She is the author. Brooke's story is not a tale of flawless survival. It's the story of a girl pushed into a spotlight she never asked for, who learned to walk through fire long before she learned to walk away from it. And somehow, after everything, she found a way to step back into her own life, finally, fully, and on her own terms.